thank you, Annie, for joining us once again from Bloom Nutrition to discuss everything. Oh, well, I'm going to say everything, but there's a lot within the gut health.
It's a massive
So we're
topic.
trying to cover as much as we can about it tonight.
Big topic. Let's see what we can get through tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a part 2, you know.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you want to start.
Can we, so there's a lot to talk about gut health. Would you mind explaining a bit what exactly gut health is and why there's so much buzz around it at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. So I think maybe we'll start with, why the gut and gut health is so important. So gut health is really important for your immune health, your hormonal health, your skin health, weight management. It can help support your sleep. There's a wide variety of different things that it kind of can support. So it's a really important thing to kind of really focus on. So a lot of things can influence the gut. And when we talk about gut health, what we talk about mainly is the microbiome. And I don't know whether many people have heard that word before, but essentially what it is just the collection of different bugs or bacteria that reside within the gut. So we have trillions upon trillions of them that reside mainly in the colon. And research continues to show us that the health of our gut is intrinsically linked to our overall kind of health and well-being. So a healthy digestive system, like I said, is linked to your immune system, your mental well-being, a wide variety of different things. But also when we talk about gut health as well, we're talking about the health of your digestive system and your ability also to digest certain foods. So are you producing enough stomach acid, digestive enzymes, and all of these different things help you break down the foods that you're eating, and then you can absorb those nutrients a lot better as well. Of course, that our diet plays a massive role in that as well. So the more kind of diverse your diet, so the more plant-based foods you have, the more diverse your microbiome will be. But of course, it's a lot more than just that. It's a lot more to do with how we eat as well, rather than what we eat. We can have one of the healthiest diets in the world, but if we're in a stress state when we're eating, then we're not going to be absorbing those nutrients. So it's a really, really important thing to make sure that you're not stressed when you're eating. So stress management is a huge, huge thing here. Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic, 100%. Any questions?
Gosh. So you mentioned it affects your mental health, your
immune health, yeah.
Immune health is the main one here, yes, and your hormones as well.
Yes.
So with that then as well, I'm very aware of prebiotics and probiotics.
Yeah.
How, because am I right in thinking they affect some bacteria and one affects one bacteria and the other affects the other one? So yes. Yeah.
So prebiotics are, it's basically like fertilizer, essentially. That can be what it can be likened to. And it basically feeds the bacteria in your gut. Then probiotics, well, prebiotics can be found in lots of different foods as well. So things like onions, leeks, garlic, that sort of thing, and also supplementation as well. And then probiotics are essentially the kind of live microorganisms, so the live bacteria. So you can find that in foods and supplements. So foods, things like yogurt, fermented foods, so things like kimchi, kombucha, all of those sorts of fermented foods. So they can be kind of, you can get those, you can get those through the foods, but also you can get that from supplementation as well. But we're always, where possible, always go for the food sources first, because not only do you get those benefits, but you also get the variety of different nutrients and other things with them that you don't necessarily get with the supplement.
Thank you. So you were mentioning earlier, obviously trying to get a variety in the diet is really good for the microbiome. any tips on how to do that, how to increase the diversity?
Yes. So one of the easiest ways and most effective ways really to create a more diverse microbiome is just to make sure that you're eating plenty of plants. So I'm talking about, obviously fruit, veg, really kind of fibrous foods, because your gut bacteria kind of thrive on those types of foods, and basically they feed your gut bacteria. So just making sure that you include, plant foods, so fruit, veg, legumes, anything that's plant-based, can really help to kind of diversify that as well. It's so far-reaching. It's when your gut microbiome is diverse, it becomes more kind of resilient as well. So that's where your immune system comes in as well. So your immune system is kind of learning from your microbiome, from the bacteria in your gut. And your gut bacteria will send messages to your immune cells to tell it how to kind of deal with viruses and infection and that sort of thing. So there's where that kind of immune health and gut health connection sort of comes together.
Wow.
So, if you find yourself always kind of prone to colds and flus and maybe gut bugs and that sort of thing, look to your gut and see where you can improve there.
That's really, I would never have thought that, really, but that, I suppose, would then link in with antibiotics. So say if you took antibiotics, I'd imagine that it's really, even though it's obviously if you were taking them for a reason and it's sorted what bacteria it needed to get rid of, it would kill the bacteria as well, wouldn't it?
That's right. That's what it does. It just wipes out, obviously the bad. And, they're necessary, obviously. And I think some people in the past maybe have kind of overdone it, but they are necessary. If you need antibiotics to get rid of infection, you need it. In a hospital situation, they save people's lives. And I think there's sometimes a bit of guilt around that. But, I think that once you have taken some antibiotics, it's really important then to nurture your gut microbiome, because like I said, you basically wipe out the good and the bad at the same time. So after you've had a course of antibiotics, it's really important just to make sure that you're, again, eating plenty of plants so that you kind of start to build up that diverse range of different microbes again. But also, if you feel like you need to do, probiotics, there's a wide variety of different probiotics out there. But what I would say, what I would caveat that with, is that just whatever kind of infection or condition or symptom that you're dealing with, you want to try and find a probiotic to match it, because there's tons and tons of research now that shows that kind of specific probiotics for specific conditions or symptoms can be really beneficial. But again, like I was saying, diet first, always, then you can get probiotic foods that will help with that.
Great, thank you.
Right.
We've had one question. Somebody said that they've been following the FODMAP diet,
yeah,
and that's been really beneficial to their IBS. But then how would you go about any tips on how to improve the gut health while following the FODMAP diet? Because I think some foods they tell you to reduce.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a challenging one. It's a difficult question to answer, actually, because obviously in my own private practice, I deal with people on a one-to-one basis, and it's always kind of personalized. So if I was kind of supporting somebody through a FODMAP diet, so anybody that doesn't know, FODMAP diet is basically fermentable carbohydrates or sugars that are found in certain foods. And FODMAP is an acronym for fermentable. Do you want to know? So it's
I've never heard of FODMAP diets before.
So it's fermented oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharides, and polyols. So those are like the different carbohydrates and different sugars are in different foods. And for a lot of people, those types of carbs and those types of sugars are problematic. So the FODMAP diet, or the low FODMAP diet, is essentially a tool to help you to kind of identify the trigger foods. So it is a diet that is meant to be followed for a short period of time. It's not something that should be on long term because it's really restrictive. And the way you do it is you go through a process of removing certain foods, like problematic foods. You do that for a period of time, obviously, depending on who I'm with, it would be a period of time that would be suitable to them. And then you start introducing problematic foods, and then that's the point where you realize that there's certain foods that you can tolerate and certain foods that you can't. And then you get that kind of personalized, sort of tailored approach then, because you realize what foods you can digest well and what foods you can't. And then that's kind of where you're at with it. So it isn't something that should be on long term. And also it should be something that's done kind of with the support of a practitioner as well, because it is, the longer you're on it, the more restrictive it becomes. And also it's not a good thing for your gut bacteria to be on it long term, because you're reducing a lot of those kind of really sort of fibrous foods that your bacteria thrive on. So it's a bit of a challenge, but what I would suggest is if they want to contact me, we can have a chat about it. I just would need to know kind of where they are, because it is challenging. There's going to be foods that we talk about today that not everybody can kind of digest. A lot of gastrointestinal symptoms like bloating, gas, that sort of thing. And a lot of kind of fibrous foods can be problematic for some people. So it is a challenge, but give me a shout if need be. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned the prebiotics, the food that really good for the gut bacteria.
Yeah.
Could you give us some examples of good food to include in your diets to make sure that you are feeding? I know you've just said that obviously it's not suitable for everyone, but just some general tips.
Yeah. So when it comes to prebiotic foods, these are the foods that feed your gut bacteria. Like I said, you can kind of, it's like a fertilizer for your gut. So again, these tend to be quite fibrous foods, which again can be a little bit troublesome for some people. So probiotic foods would kind of include things like leeks, onions, garlic, dairy to some extent. There's a lot of different, no, not dairy, sorry. A lot of kind of fibrous foods, to some extent can be really, really good for a lot of people, but not for everyone. Gut health is a bit of a challenge for some people. Some people have, intolerances to certain foods. Some people, realize that there's something going on, but they can't make that link between what's happening and whether it's any type of food that they're eating. So, it can be a bit of a challenge, but certain foods, I would just say, making sure that your diet is as diverse as possible. You're getting a wide range of different fruit, veg, beans, legumes. It can be kind of spices as well, lots of different things. So that, teas, that kind of thing, herbs, anything like that, because it's all plant-based, and a wide variety of all of those different things feeds your bacteria and keeps them happy.
Thank you very much. And at the start, you said a bit about the the connection between the gut and mental health.
Yeah.
Would you mind explaining a bit more about that, about the latest research?
No, not at all. So we have a direct link between the brain and the gut, which is called the gut-brain axis, something that maybe you want to look at. So we have this direct kind of nerve that links the brain to every single organ, connects every single organ to this nerve, which is called the vagus nerve. It's like a wandering nerve, and it sends direct messages from different organs in the body directly to your brain. And your gut is actually home to it produces a lot of serotonin, which is your happy hormone. So you get those direct kind of messages from your brain, from your gut to your brain. So if you have that kind of gut feeling, there's a definite reason for that, and that's because of that connection via the vagus nerve, which is a really, really fascinating thing to look into, because there's so many ways that you can kind of activate it as well. And when we first started, I was talking about how kind of stress can impact your digestive system. And just by doing some kind of deep breathing exercises, that can really help to switch on and kind of switch on that vagus nerve, and it sends direct messages so that your body knows that it's time to kind of rest and digest. It kind of triggers that parasympathetic nervous system, which is your kind of calming effect. So yeah, you know, that is one of the ways that we have that kind of direct link between our gut and our brain. But yeah, it kind of spans so many other different things as well.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, really interesting, and kind of links into some of the kind of background of yoga, really, that you should be practicing yoga on an empty stomach and doing the pranayama, the breathing and the meditating, and then have something to eat. So in a way, you're eating in that relaxed or calm state.
It's the best thing you can do, because if you're eating it, we're all stressed these days, aren't we? You know, we're all kind of on the go, 2 years living through a pandemic, cost of living, there's so many different stresses that we're exposed to. So just kind of taking a minute to take a breath before you eat is one of the best things you can do, because if you're in fight or flight and you're stressed when you're eating, you're whatever you're eating is just wasted, essentially, because your digestive system is down-regulated. It's not important at that time, because your body thinks that you've got to run away from the big lion, or it's in that survival mode. So the nutrients that you're absorbing are not going to be absorbed to their kind of like full extent. So it's not a very healthy way to eat. People are eating, watching TV and kind of on the go. Just taking some time to breathe before eating is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much it's with the fact, like, the nutrients your body would absorb. That's incredible.
Well, when your body's in that kind of fight or flight and that high stress mode, everything in the body just is down regulated. It's not important because your body's in survival mode. So things like fertility, and there's a wide kind of range of different things that are impacted by it. So just practicing yoga, deep breathing, just simple techniques like that can just have such a positive impact. That's why your classes are so good, Beth.
Thank you. Check in the post. So we've got a question in the chat box. You talked a lot about plant-based. How effective are drinks like Actimel for gut health?
They do have some probiotics in them, yes, but they also have some other kind of like sugars and certain things that aren't quite so good for the gut. Artificial sweeteners and sugars as well. If you have dysbiosis, it's called, which is like an imbalance between the good and the bad bacteria in your gut, your bad bacteria feed on those sugars, and then they become a bit kind of fermented, and then they gas producing, and then they can cause either kind of gastrointestinal issues. But to be honest, things like Actimel, they do their own research, which you can go and have a look at as well. I mean, it's worth just looking into those things and working out what kind of suits you best, and what suits your budget as well. What I would say is, things like kefir are a little bit better. And, if you can't tolerate a dairy well, there's things like coconut kefir, and, there's kombucha, and there's lots of other kind of things that you can have instead.
There's lots of things that you can do yourself as well with the kefir. It's quite, make some nice kind of fizzy water.
Yeah.
Dairy free as well.
Absolutely. You can just buy a kit from Amazon and just do it yourself if you want, if you're so inclined to do so. I know it can be a little bit of work, but it might be worth it. Just give it a whirl.
Yeah. And how often would you say is worth thinking of taking like kombucha, kefir? Or that's probably, I'd imagine, entirely up to you and your.
Yeah. I mean, there's no harm in doing it every day, or every other day. on a regular basis, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you kind of also touched on the link between healthy hormones and healthy guts as well.
Yeah.
And obviously hormone health is so important, and I feel it's kind of been really more in the news recently. There's been a lot about the menopause, perimenopause. Can you explain a bit about how the link between hormone health and
Definitely. So this is something I spend most of my days talking about with the people I work with, because obviously I specialize in female health. So what's really important is to make sure that you're having a bowel movement every day. And obviously you need to make sure that you're having plenty of fiber, lots of variety in your diet in order to make that happen. So if that isn't happening and you're not going every day, then we have specific bacteria in our gut known as beta-glucuronidase that can actually recirculate used up estrogen. And that then can be problematic because it leads then to kind of estrogen dominance and then symptoms that are related to that, such as PMS, heavy periods, that sort of thing. So having a healthy gut and making sure that you are having a bowel movement at least once a day. Some people it's more, but like aiming to get to at least once a day can really, really benefit your hormones. Really help to kind of, make sure that used up estrogen is being removed from the body so that you have more kind of balanced estrogen levels as opposed to super high and dominant.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
I'm trying to think if there was anything.
If you want to put any questions in the chat box, feel free.
I think that was all the questions you've covered with the notes I had down here.
Shall I give you some tips on ways that you can improve your gut health?
Oh yes, please.
Yeah? So I've got 10 for you. So number one, obviously we've spoken about this throughout this talk. So diversify your diet. So making sure you have plenty fruit, veg, legumes, beans, a wide variety of different plant-based foods, because your gut bugs absolutely thrive on that kind of thing. So the more diverse your diet, the more diverse your gut bacteria will be, and that then is a really positive thing for health ongoingly, overall health and well-being. Number two is try a probiotic. So a probiotic food, as we've already discussed, those can be found in things like fermented foods or yogurt, that sort of thing. Again, if you are considering a supplement, have a look into what it is you're suffering with and if there are any particular supplements that will benefit it. There's so many different bacteria strains that are really helpful for lots of different health conditions and symptoms. So it's worth just kind of having a look there if that's something that you're interested in. Number three, limit processed foods. So it's kind of going back to what we were talking about, sort of, sugary, kind of processed sugars and that sort of thing. They feed your gut bacteria, your bad gut bacteria, which then can kind of create lots of kind of digestive upset or discomfort. Manage your stress. Again, just making sure that you breathe before you eat. You're doing plenty of yoga, breathing techniques, activate that vagus nerve as well. And there's so many ways you can activate that vagus nerve as well. Singing, gargling, there's so many different things that you can do to kind of, to get it going. And that sends a direct message to your body that it's in that parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. Minimize alcohol. Again, excess alcohol damages your gut microbiome, so that's not a good thing. So just kind of limit that. Maximum of 14 units per week is maximum for both men and women. So try to think about that a little bit. Eat mostly plant-based foods. We spoke about diversifying your diet, but if you have meat-free Mondays, think about what you can kind of replace that with, like what other kind of plant food you can replace it with. Tofu, beans, anything that's kind of got high protein levels but also is plant-based, and you're getting that kind of wider range of different plants in. only take antibiotics when necessary. Again, we spoke about this. Obviously that will, it destroys your microbiome. It wipes out the good and the bad. But of course, once you've done that, the thing you want to do is just nurture your microbiome and just make sure it's getting lots of good stuff in there. Limit your sugar intake, we spoke about that one. Eat fermented foods, so things like kombucha, obviously that's drinking it, not eating it. Kimchi, yogurt, all of those sorts of things, because they're a natural source of probiotics. And then number 10, which I think a lot of people kind of maybe overlook this, is prioritize your sleep. Yeah, good quality sleep is positively correlated with your diverse microbiome. So I would just, all of those different things are really kind of basic things that we should all be doing, but I think a lot of us kind of overlook a lot of it.
I suppose the sleep would then also link into the parasympathetic system, nervous system as well, the rest of the stress. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
isn't it?
It's nice to have that before going to bed as well. It's nice just to have that kind of bedtime routine, because it really does sort of set the kind of tone. If you have like a sleepy tea, or you have a bath, or any of those things, it's just it's just really helpful.
I did have one question. I just thought that you reminded me when you said about eat mostly plant food. Say I don't eat meat, but I do eat fish occasionally. But if you did eat meat and fish, would you say there's a type of meat or fish that's better to eat to help your gut?
Yeah, I mean, wherever you can. I mean, just from a general kind of health perspective, wherever you can, just eat organic meat, and also those the foods that are organic, the meats that are organic, they also have higher kind of numbers of omega-3s in them as well, because they are grass-fed, they're healthier generally. So that also, like with oily fish, for example, making sure you get between 2 and 3 portions of oily fish a week if you eat fish. Those are the types of foods that I would kind of obviously encourage more, but it also depends what you can afford as well. It's a difficult time for a lot of people, so I wouldn't beat yourself up about having chicken or whatever. Whatever you can afford is is good.
Thank you. Any more questions for the chat box? Or
if not, do you think it's time for us to?
Yes, I think so.
Launch our challenge?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
June's challenge. I hope I've got this right. So we thought, following this conversation and the chat we had previously, it'd be good to launch a challenge to do in June. I think I'll find this as a challenge, but I'm looking forward to try and eat 30 different plant foods in 30 days. No,
in a week.
Sorry.
30 different plant foods in a week.
Yes.
Which is a challenge, but if you're cooking a lot of things from scratch at home, you will probably get there quite easily. But also, it's not just fruit and veg. It's your beans, lentils, herbs, spices, nuts, seeds, all of those things combined. I think I was telling you girls the other day that if you were to make I always say a red Thai curry, for example, or, a green, a Thai curry, if you're making that, the paste yourself, you're going to be adding probably maybe 10 or so ingredients to that. And then you've got your coconut milk, and then you've got the other veg that goes in it, and then you've got your rice. So that one kind of meal will probably end up having maybe closer to 20 different types of plants in it. So if you think about the way that you're cooking and what you can add in, and also when you're shopping as well, maybe going for different varieties. If you always have a green apple, go for a red apple. If you always have white rice, have basmati rice. Or, there's so many different varieties of different plants. Just go for something different, maybe once a week. Challenge yourself when you go into the fruit and veg shop. What is that? How do I cook it? Those fruit and veg have their own microbiome as well, which then is transferred to you. So it's just about having a wide variety of different things in your diet. So yeah, 30 a week.
2 weeks, sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and also people that have sort of 30 plus plants that consume more than 30 plus plants a week also have a more, there's research that shows they have a more diverse gut microbiome, and this is the kind of aim really, is to get a more diverse microbiome.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to add on trying to have a good breath, just do some good breath work before lunch. Tipper, I'm better sitting down, just enjoying it, but
yeah.
So no, well, it is challenge actually.
Yeah. So we'll share some resources on ideas of
Yes.
things.
I'll send some things that I've got kind of in my repertoire, so that you can then send it on to everybody else, so everybody's got an idea of how to do it, you know, because it can be a little bit challenging, but it's, you know, maybe it's a good week with it being half term.
Yeah, hopefully, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time this evening. I've learned lots as usual.
Good.
Just one last chance. Any questions before we close the session?
Oh, give us a thumbs up if you fancy taking part in the challenge.
Yeah, and send, tag me in, you know, any of your recreations as well. I want to see what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if anyone has, like you said, Thai curry is a really good recipe. If there's any similar recipe we could share, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. Fab.
Great. Brilliant. Thank you. And yeah, it'll be nice to share on social media and things how everyone gets on with the challenge. So
yeah, it'd be good. It'd be really great to see how people feel afterwards as well, you know.
Oh yeah, exactly. If there's a difference in the 30 days. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just let us know how you feel, how you start and how you end, and whether you'll continue to do it.
Yeah. Diolch yn fawr, lots of useful info. Looking forward to the challenge.
Oh, great stuff.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I always like somebody that likes to get stuck in.
So the good news is the challenge is starting on the 1st of June.
Yeah,
so
time to go to the shop tomorrow for me.
Yeah. Fab. Thanks, ladies. Thanks for asking me.
Thank you for your time. Yes.
My pleasure.
Hopefully see you soon.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.